If money is stressful in your family, kids are going to pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
But the really cool thing is they can be along for the journey as you tackle that, as you, as a family, figure out how do we make finances not stressful. The kids are going to watch you go through that journey, and they're going to pick up so much just from you going on that journey, and they will catch a ton. And later in life, I guarantee they would bring it up.
Amazing parents, welcome back to Pep Talk, the Parent Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Kayla, and I am so excited to be back for another episode of Pep Talk. Man, we have just had a fun semester with kids, talking about all these virtues of what God is doing in us and the example that He's set for us. And we're just so proud of you for parenting your kids so well. And this month, we are joined by one of our family directors here at New Life, Jeremy Sissel.
Hey, guys.
Jeremy and his wife, Blair, help lead our family ministry here at New Life, and they do a great job. So, Jeremy, what word are we talking about this month?
This month is joy, celebrating what God is doing in your life.
That's right. So joy, we all love joy. I think we all want joy. People are always searching for happiness, but really joy is finding what God's already doing and celebrating what He's doing. And so all month we're going to be talking about how do we find joy? It's easy to find joy when it's your birthday or it's Christmas sometimes. I mean, I'm not always for parents, but for kids it usually is. And when we find that joy, but how do we find joy in hard situations? If we read the Psalms, man, David was up and down and all around, but he did find joy. And there were times where he said, I choose to look for the Lord. I sought the Lord and He answered me. And so we're going to talk about that with our kids and help develop this virtue of joy in their lives that really comes from God. But one thing that sometimes cannot bring joy that we talk about, or we don't like to talk about?
Finances.
Oh, yeah. Everyone kind of, you adjust finances. Oh, yeah.
Count me out.
Right. Oh, no. But this month at FX and for our Pep Talk episode, we're talking about finances. It's not something that we just want to let slide by. It can be an awkward thing to talk about, but it's an important thing to talk about with our kids. So we brought on the one and only amazing Melissa Elstermeier.
Hi, everyone.
Yay. We're so excited to have you, Melissa, and excited for you to just share with parents a little bit about what we can do to be intentional as we raise our kids to know and love God when it comes to finances and managing resources that God gives them. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, your family, give us a little snapshot into your life.
Yeah, I'm Melissa, and I am married, and we have 2 little girls. We have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old.
Oh.
So sleep is few and far between, but there's fun and joy. So it's a good stage. And we were foster parents a few years ago. So we had an experience where we got to jump right into parenting with a first grader, a 6-year-old little boy. And so we did that for 6 months before our now oldest was born. Foster care and foster parenting is something that we're passionate about. And I've got a good story about him and money later on.
Oh, good. That's awesome. And what do you do during the day?
So I work in agricultural finance, a little bit of a numbers nerd. And so I've done that the last 8 years. And I work with money and finances day in and day out.
That's awesome. See, so this is why we brought her. Jeremy, are you a numbers guy?
I think it's interesting what you can do with numbers, but I am not good at math.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I don't think with numbers. I think with pictures.
Yeah.
That's probably why I work with kids. I think with crayons. No, but that's awesome, Melissa. We're glad to have you. How long have you guys been married?
We have been married for 5 years.
Oh, congrats. 5's a big one. That's a big number to celebrate. And we made it 5 years.
Isn't that the statistic? If you make it past 5, then you're making it to 25 or whatever?
I think so.
It's something like that.
So that's awesome. Well, tonight you shared how in your really quick onset into the parenting journey, you had a situation that made you think, oh, we better talk about finances. Could you share that with our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So first time that we realized we needed to be intentional in how we approached money with kids. We were 3 months into our foster parent journey with our 6-year-old foster son. And he had been locking himself in the bathroom for a couple of days for like extensive amounts of time. And so I told my husband, I said, Nathan, you better check on him. It's probably a guy thing.
Yep.
So he went in there, and our foster son was standing in front of the mirror trying to pull his teeth out. And backstory, 2 days before that, he had lost a tooth, and we put $1 under his pillow. And come to find out, he was saving up for a skateboard. We just didn't know about it. He needed to pull 14 more teeth to hit his $15 money goal to buy himself a skateboard. So, yeah, we got a good kick out of that. Laughed pretty good. And then we realized we should come up with a better strategy, something more sustainable. You only have so many teeth. And so he could get the skateboard probably, but the next thing might be short on. So we ended up ordering some curriculum to walk through with him. We talked about how we can earn money and give, save, and spend, and a better, more sustainable way to save up for his skateboard.
I love that. I mean, he has an entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely.
Kind of, like with teeth.
Yeah.
But it really relies on the tooth fairy a little too much, I think. Yeah. But, it's the heart,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's just a winner story overall. I just really love that. But, it's interesting. I was looking up, experts say that most kids will have established their money habits by the time they're age 12. So they will kind of already develop what their relationship with money is. How do they feel about money? Do they think money is a resource? Do they think money is a stressor? Do they think money is a gift? Do they think money means nothing? They'll develop how they feel about money. They'll develop habits. Like, are they a natural saver? Are they a natural spender? Could you tell us, like, maybe with younger kids, like, what are some things that you think, like, how would you tell a kid is a saver or a spender?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just getting into it with our 3-year-old right now, and that's the age that they can start to grasp money and some of those concepts at a very beginner level. Right now we are working on introducing money and trying to teach that it takes earning money to buy things. And so really from that age 3, you can start. But later, like you said, kids really have formed a lot of their money habits or their foundation by age 12. And so if you've got a kid, I have friends that will help their kids clean their rooms, and they'll find cash stashed all over the place. And a natural saver, a kid that's kind of hoarding money and doesn't really know what they're going to spend it on or doesn't want to spend it. Mm-hmm. And then, there's other kids that as soon as they come across $5, they are at the store and they are going to buy something for $5 because they have $5. And so, natural spender.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Are you still a natural spender?
I've gotten way better about it, but you had talked about like your financial blunders, and I was like, I don't know if I should share that story or if we should ask for you to share yours or not. But I was like, it takes like 5 minutes for me to explain how I wasted like $50,000. So
50,000. Okay.
When you add it all up, it was about that much.
That's a good story. We're going to need a part 2 to this.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Okay. That's good. Well, one of the things you talked about was the idea of an allowance, or I believe you used another term, commissioning. Mm-hmm. Maybe let's talk a little bit about that. So like, what would you say for kids, for parents who are looking like, okay, I want to give my kids the opportunity to start learning how to manage money. What's a really good starting point for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to Dave Ramsey and Rachel Cruz and their book, Smart Money, Smart Kids. That's where I really got the idea for the commissions. It's something that they talk about extensively in that book. But really the concept is that if you just give your kids an allowance each week, they're not going to learn the work ethic of having to save up money and earn money to buy things that they need. So if you're just handing your kids money, if you want to teach them that work ethic and teach them about saving and delayed gratification, you can give them money in exchange for chores and it can vary depending on what's age appropriate and what your family's thoughts are on how much money they should have access to.
Sure.
But really setting some guide rails for them so they can earn money and start to buy the things for themselves. The cool thing is kids have a huge sense of pride when they buy something for themselves. They'll take better care of it and they'll start learning how to manage money.
That's true. I was just thinking so instead of every Monday night, oh, here's your $5 for the week, or here's your $1 for the week, 10 times, But instead of that, it's almost helpful to have some sort of list. Hey, you need to accomplish this every week, especially for a visual learner, that they could see hey, this is what I'm working towards, right? So that's probably something that would be helpful to you in that commissioning. Hey, these are tasks that I need to accomplish, or here's something that we agreed upon ahead of time that I can work towards, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's a total real life lesson because we have to go to work to earn money to buy the things that we need or want. And so you're really teaching that through funds that you're probably going to give to your kid anyway in some way, shape, or form, whether that's allowance or just buying stuff at the store as they need it. But allowing them the opportunity to save up and get it for themselves and have that exchange and go to the store and purchase it themselves.
Yeah, true. And so I think, let's break it down. So this is a really good, especially for these elementary age, right? This maybe upper preschool. About what age do you think is a good time to start teaching kids about money?
Yeah, like I said, at age 3 would be a good starting point. It's pretty minimal at that age, but you can ask them to do age-appropriate chores. Maybe it's helping unload the dishes or putting some clothes away or, maybe sweeping or things that you might have to redo anyways, but giving them the opportunity to learn that. And then when they're that little, you have to have that reward be immediate. So they finish the job, you give them a quarter. And so they need to just where they're at developmentally, they need to have that immediately for them to really make that connection.
Yeah. And I think, I like what you're saying with that, instant, here's something for what you worked on. And some really good values, I think, at this age too, are teaching kids to save up for something. Okay, you have this money. Let's get just a glass jar. I mean, you don't have to spend a bunch on going and buying a fancy bank or anything. They're just going to watch it physically pile up as they save their money, get something that they can see, right? And teach them about, okay, man, you saved up this much. This equals... And then you can show the item that it equals, right? That's just a really practical way for these little kids. And also teaching generosity. These kids at this young age, if they teach hey, if you give this to this, this is going to equal that. You also had a really good idea, even as they get older, about teaching them to give their time as well. Why don't you talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, there's so many opportunities to go out and volunteer with your kids, and that gives them that lesson of being generous with, you can do that with time and with money, but it's really cool when you can connect the two. So for example, adopting a family for Christmas and explaining, some kids aren't able to get, the things on their Christmas list. And so we're going to help out and we're going to go purchase these. And maybe even they save up some money and they pitch in to help with that experience. And they're going to have a ton of pride in that. They're going to learn to be generous. They're going to learn that it feels good to give and it feels good to be generous. And they're going to learn that from a young age. If they have something that they become passionate about, and you can pick that up pretty quickly when they're little. If there's an organization or a mission, you can tell them that they can, save up and give money for that. You can take them out volunteering at different community events and teaching them how to give time and how to give money.
Yeah, I think one that I see often that I think goes really well is at New Life, we always participate in Operation Christmas Child, where we pack these boxes for kids that go all over so that we can give them a gift, but then also tell them about Jesus. And I think that it would be a great opportunity if you start talking about it in the early fall, hey, Operation Christmas Child is going to be coming up. And would you like to adopt a kid to gift for Christmas? And they could start saving towards that and then use their money to go to Five Below or wherever and pick out the items that they can with that. I think, like you said, there's going to be a pride to that they gifted this gift for somebody else. And it teaches this heart of generosity even at that young age.
Yeah. Side story. So my husband and I are the directors for Kearney Rural Family Kids. and it's a program for kids in the foster care system. They put on a week-long camp and a year-round mentoring program. And there was a little boy that heard about the organization at his church. And so he put on a bake sale in the church lobby and donated all the money to the organization. And it was the sweetest thing to see an elementary age kid do that.
Yeah.
So entrepreneur and generous
Also
heart,
true.
like all wrapped up in one. I mean, that kid is going places.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that is true. And so, we can teach those values at this young age of saving, of giving generously. But then as your kid gets closer to the older elementary stage, I think a new value comes in that would be contentment. It can be really easy when kids are young, a little bit, they notice it, but especially as they get older, it can be really easy to start comparing what you have versus what others have and start recognizing the dollar value and this is worth this much, this is worth less, right? And what could you tell us a little bit about helping your child learning to be content?
Yeah, I would say that's one of the harder ones to teach because even as adults, we can struggle with that all the time. And I know I struggle with it sometimes and comparing what other people have or what they're able to get. And for a kid, that can be really hard to grasp why their friends have, this and that, and then they want it too. And so a lot of it is going to be stuff that they just pick up from watching us. So if it's like, oh, I really like that pair of shoes, but I have 3 pairs of sneakers at home that are perfectly good, and so I'm going to pass on those today. And so you can do little things like that. There's books that are out there that talk about being content, being grateful. A great lesson that a kid can learn the hard way is if they break something that they love, rather than replacing it, have them earn up to get it. And so then they can learn that they were okay without it for that time period while they were saving up and take pride in being able to replace it and earn money and get it again.
True. Yeah, I love it. I heard one family that has a $15 rule. And if something is over $15, you have to wait 24 hours to buy it. And I just thought it was such a wise idea for these kids that, you see something and it's $18, and you're like, I just want it, this impulse buy moment. But by 9 p.m., do they still really just got to have it?
Or do they even remember it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's a good one for adults too. That dollar amount's probably a little different.
I do that to myself, but it's I think it's like $100 is what I've told myself. If it's over $100, I need to think about it and I do 2 days instead of just one.
Yeah, I think it's really wise to have those sort of rules for ourselves, not because rules are restricting, right? But because rules are like good boundaries and just good guidelines to help us make wise decisions. And like you're saying, a lot of this is caught, maybe even more than taught.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And as kids observe our mom and dad making these impulse buys, when I'm out with grandma, what does grandma do with her money? These are things that they pick up on, and those ideas of what money is are established as a young age.
And if money is stressful in your family, kids are going to pick up on that. But the really cool thing is they can be along for the journey as you tackle that, as you, as a family, figure out how do we make finances not stressful? Can we go through Financial Peace University together? As the parents, and then the kids are going to watch you go through that journey, and they're going to pick up so much just from you going on that journey, and they will catch a ton. And later in life, I guarantee they would bring it up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think so too. And it's a great time if money is a stressor. Let's talk maybe to the parent that needs a pep talk, because money is a stressor right now because inflation is tough. Costs are high. Money can be, like we said at the very beginning, it can be awkward and it can be tough to talk about. What's something you would maybe encourage a family that's going through a tough financial time right now when it comes to how that's portrayed to their kids?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess the first thing I would say is that if you don't tell your money where to go, it's going to wander off. And so do a budget. And I know once you get into a place where it's stressful, it's tight, it's getting hard to, purchase some things that are needed, it can be overwhelming and daunting to sit down and go through that. But sit down, make a budget, talk about it. And once you start talking about it and get over that first hurdle, you can start to make some progress, and it becomes easier to talk about, easier to deal with, and you can hopefully come up with a plan. If you're married, to sit down with your spouse and really figure out how to be on the same page and looking at it long term. So there's the stress of like the right here and now. We have this and this coming up, but taking a step back too to look long term and say, hey, like 10 years from now, where could we be and how do we work backwards and what steps do we implement to get there?
Yeah, that's wise.
I think that's really good. Like, you had a lot of good things that you said out there today, but one of my favorite things was you have to be intentional in teaching your kids about finances. But then, kind of like what you're talking about right now, you have to be intentional. If you don't tell your money where to go, your money's going to wander off. You have to be intentional where your money's going. You have to be intentional with your relationship with your kids. You have to be intentional with the relationship between you and your spouse. Like, how many people are just skating through life, just kind of letting it happen, and then we have this stress that overwhelms us, and are like, oh man, what am I going to do now? It's like we have to be intentional, and you can catch those things on the front end. So that was one of my favorite things that you said today. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
I love that too.
the saying, if the grass is greener on the other side, water your own grass.
Be intentional.
Yeah, I love that. I think Jesus has a lot to say about it. The Bible has a lot to say about it. While you were talking about that, and maybe in those stressful times, on Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5 and 6, he says, "Don't be anxious. Instead, pray." Like, when you feel anxious, remind yourself, like, if God cares for the grass of the fields, if he cares for the birds, like how much more is he going to care for you because he loves you, because you're a child of God, because you've been chosen, that God knows your name. He knows all that you're going through. Like, choose in those moments, instead of stressing, to pray. That's going to speak to your kids. And maybe you are doing that, and great job. And maybe you didn't. And you can even say to your kids, that would have been a great opportunity to pray there. Because we're all going to forget. Like, we want to be intentional. We want to be deliberate with our steps. But there's times where it is stressful. And those are great moments to remind yourself of what Jesus has said to us. Like, I'm going to care for you, right? I love in 1 Timothy 6, he says, Paul was writing this, and he says, "True godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content." And just the reminder, even to ourselves, whether money is bountiful or stressful, at the end of the day, God holds it all. It's God's money. It's not ours. Everything that we have is God's. We're just here to steward it. We're here to manage it. And what are we investing our lives into? Are we choosing to seek godliness, like putting our effort into becoming more like God, more like Jesus, and then learning to be content with what God has given us? And that's going to give us, the Bible says, great wealth, because that wealth will last beyond this lifetime into the next lifetime. Mm-hmm. And what a great legacy to leave for our children. Yeah. Melissa, is there anything else that you maybe want to share? Maybe any resources that you could give to families of some things that would be helpful for them as they parent their kids?
I mentioned the book, Smart Money, Smart Kids. That has, if you want to go dive deeper into what would be age-appropriate ways to talk about or implement some type of commission strategy with your kids, it goes through, there's chapters for different ages. And so you can look at that. And then it goes beyond, like, all the way through sending your kid off to college. So tons of good stuff in there. Yeah. If you haven't, as adults, if you haven't taken Financial Peace University, that is a great thing to do. And the ripple effects of that will pass on through your kids. And then there is Financial Peace Kids. And so there's a kids version of that curriculum, and it has books that are in story format. It has different activities for them to do to teach some of those lessons in a way that they can understand. So yeah, there's lots of good stuff out there.
Those are great resources. Thanks. Well, we are about to the end of our day, but we have one final question that we always ask our parents. So Jeremy, would you ask her that final question?
What is something that you've learned through parenting that you wish you would have known earlier?
That's a good question. So I feel like I'm learning this right now, and I'm trying to constantly remind myself. But I find myself getting so overwhelmed by the amount of information that's funneled to us as parents of how you should be raising your kids, what specific decisions you should make, like what activities should they be in, what should you feed them, and how should you handle this behavior or this tantrum. And so I feel like there's a lot of criticism and judgment towards parents out there. And so it can be easy to feel like you're not doing a good enough job or you mess something up. And so I guess the lesson that I'm learning right now is to take a step back and see or evaluate, where do I want my kids to be as adults? What lessons, what foundational pieces, and focus on the bigger items rather than the little ones. You know,
good.
I'm not, am I a bad parent for feeding them X for dinner or whatever, you know, and not spend so much time on that, because it's so distracting from thinking about how do I want my child to be as an adult, and how can I help teach some of those lessons or walk alongside them as they're building their foundation that is going to lead them into hopefully being a happy, joyful, successful member of society later in life.
Absolutely.
Love that. Yeah, that's a great reminder for all of us parents that you're doing a great job. Look at that big picture. What are you doing overall? What are those overarching things? Instead of always, there are moments we want to zoom in and focus on things, but it's good to keep going on. And remember, God gave you your kids as a gift. You're doing a great job. It wasn't on accident that your kids are your children. He gave them to you, and they're a gift. And I hope that this month you and your family will find some more joy, whether it's in your finances or in your activities or just in those restful days in between. God established that rhythm right in the beginning. 6 days of work hard, but then rest too. So find those moments in the upcoming days and weeks to prioritize that as a family and find that joy. If this episode was helpful for you, would you share it with a friend? Share the pep talk with your friend, maybe a fellow mom or a fellow dad that is right in the middle of all the parenting journey with you. Jeremy, Melissa, thanks so much for joining us on the pep talk today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we loved having you guys, and we can't wait to see you again for Pep Talk next month. Bye.